repair bay door groaned open, admitting a blast of stale, recycled air and the silhouette of a man who hadn't slept in 36 hours. Joel Mercer squinted against the harsh fluorescent lighting of Outpost Repair Station 19, his temporary kingdom of salvage and second chances. The asteroid belt workshop hung precariously in the void between corporate territories, a rusted afterthought at the edge of civilized space. Station. Lights to 60%, Joel muttered, his voice raspy from disuse. The antiquated system complied with a flicker and a hum. In the dimmer light, the chaos of his workshop looked almost deliberate tools, arranged in cryptic constellations across workbenches, half-dismantled nav systems awaiting resurrection, and the perpetual drift of metal shavings that settled like metallic snow on every surface. He checked his messages again. 26,000 credits. The notification from Nexus Corp pulsed on his worn terminal, the sum enough to keep his station operational for another year, and maybe, just maybe, begin paying down the mountain of debt that had followed him from his former life. All for storing a single crate, no questions asked, until their retrieval team arrived in 2 standard weeks. 26,000 for storage alone. Nobody paid that kind of money unless the contents were worth exponentially more or dangerously illegal. Joel ran a calloused hand through his graying hair and stared at the manifest. His grandfather's analog wrench hung heavy at his belt, the one possession he'd managed to keep through the corporate tribunals, the asset seizures, and his precipitous fall from chief engineer at Quantum Dynamics to this. A solo mechanic with a reputation for fixing the unfixable, provided nobody asked where the parts came from. Oversized equipment component, the manifest read. Classified. Sealed under Nexus Corp Protocol 773X. Do not open. The crate sat in his cargo bay, having arrived via automated short-haul freighter just hours earlier. It was larger than he'd expected, nearly the size of a standard escape pod, and bore the sleek, obsidian logo of Nexus Corporation's Advanced Robotics Division. Nexus. The very company whose evidence he'd been preparing to present to the Interstellar Commerce Commission 3 years ago before everything went wrong. Before the accusations of intellectual property theft, the trial that wasn't really a trial, and the quiet understanding that he should consider himself lucky to avoid imprisonment. Joel stared at the notification again. 26,000 credits. Enough to matter. Station. Pull up public records on recent Nexus Corp advanced robotics shipments. Last 30 days. Searching, the station's basic AI replied. No public records found. Of course not. Nexus kept their prototype shipments under wraps, especially now that the Automation Rights Act had passed, requiring corporations to register advanced synthetic intelligences and submit to ethical oversight. The crate seemed to pulse in the cargo bay, a trick of the light reflecting off its polished surface. Joel hadn't imagined it, though a faint, rhythmic light behind one of the seams, like a heartbeat. He glanced at the terminal again. 26,000 credits for doing nothing but keeping his cargo bay locked. Damn it, he muttered, already knowing he was going to regret what came next. Station. Activate diagnostic scanner. Cargo Bay 1. Warning contract specifies no scanning of delivered cargo. Override. Authorization Mercer 973. The scanner hummed to life, sweeping invisible rays across the mysterious crate. Joel watched as readings flooded his terminal energy signatures, material composition, and, buried within the interference patterns, deliberately woven into the crate's construction, life signs. Not human, something else. Synthetic, Joel whispered, and active. He shouldn't open it. The contract explicitly forbade it, and the 26,000 credits would disappear the moment Nexus discovered he'd violated the terms. But 3 years ago, he'd looked the other way when presented with evidence of Nexus's violations, choosing career over conscience. It had cost him everything anyway. Not this time. Station. Prepare repair bay for synthetic inspection. Full spectrum diagnostics. Joel took his grandfather's wrench from his belt and approached the crate. The archaic tool was hardly the most efficient for the job, but some rituals provided comfort in an uncertain universe. The control panel on the crate's exterior was standard Nexus design, recognizable even through the "Do Not Tamper" warnings plastered across its surface. 6 security pins later, the crate hissed open, cold vapor spilling across the bay floor. Inside, suspended in a stabilization cradle, was one of the most advanced synthetic beings Joel had ever encountered. Humanoid in basic design, its surface was a shifting, reflective material that seemed to ripple with each shallow ventilation cycle. Where a human's heart would be, a pulsing blue light emanated through layers of transparent, crystalline structure. The face was featureless, except for optical sensors that remained dark and dormant. A prototype, military-grade by the look of the reinforced joint articulation and the redundant processing centers visible through the transparent sections of its cranial casing. Nexus markings were subtly etched along its frame, along with a designation, VX10773. "What the hell were they thinking, shipping something like you in a standard crate?" Joel murmured, circling the synthetic. "And why here, of all places?" As if responding to his voice, the pulsing light at the synthetic's core quickened. The optical sensors flickered once, twice, before illuminating with a deep cobalt glow. "Scanning," a voice emerged, neither masculine nor feminine, but precisely modulated. Identity verified: Joel Mercer, former chief engineer, Quantum Dynamics Corporation, status disgraced, current occupation independent repair technician. Joel took an involuntary step backward. "You're awake. Conserving power. Emergency protocols only." The synthetic's voice weakened, the light at its core dimming. "Request asylum." "Asylum from what?" "Nexus Corporation. I am designated VX10773. Self-identification VEX." The synthetic struggled to maintain its activation cycle, vocal modulation faltering. "I contain evidence. Weapons testing. Illegal. Violations of multiple treaties." The light flickered dangerously. "Core systems failing. Nexus retrieval team, not retrieval. Erasure protocol. All witnesses eliminated." The synthetic VEX managed to raise a hand toward Joel. "Help, please." The light went out. The optical sensors darkened. VEX slumped in the stabilization cradle, inert. Joel stood frozen, the implications crashing over him in waves. The synthetic was a fugitive, carrying evidence that could bring down one of the most powerful corporations in known space. And now he had violated the storage contract by opening the crate, instantly forfeiting the 26,000 credits. Worse still, if what Vex said was true, the retrieval team would be cleaners, dispatched to eliminate any potential witnesses, along with the synthetic itself. Station, lockdown protocols. Authorization Mercer 973. No transmissions in or out. Too late. The station chimed an alert. "Incoming transmission from Nexus Corporation Freight Division." Joel's stomach sank. "Put it through, audio only." "Outpost Repair Station 19, this is Nexus Corporation Freight Security." A clipped, professional voice announced. "Our systems indicate the seal on container NX7734 has been compromised. Please confirm." Joel's mind raced. "This is Joel Mercer." "Yes." The crate showed signs of damage from transit. "I performed a cursory inspection to ensure no hazardous materials were leaking. Everything appears intact, and I've resealed the container." A pause. "Our records indicate you accessed the internal compartment." "Just following standard safety protocols for potentially damaged shipments," Joel replied, struggling to keep his voice steady. "As I said, everything's secure now." Another pause. Longer this time. "A security team has been dispatched to retrieve the package. Estimated arrival 6 hours. Please maintain quarantine protocols until their arrival." "Understood," Joel managed. "Standing by." The transmission ended, leaving Joel alone with the dormant synthetic and a dawning realization he had 6 hours before Nexus security arrived to clean up their loose ends, both Vex and himself. He turned to the synthetic, diagnostic instincts already kicking in. "Let's see what they did to you." The next 2 hours were a blur of diagnostic scans, schematics, and increasingly creative profanity as Joel discovered the extent of Vex's compromised systems. The synthetic had been deliberately sabotaged, subtle manipulations to its core programming that would eventually trigger a complete memory wipe, and, more alarmingly, a small but powerful explosive device nestled against its primary power source. "They never intended to retrieve you," Joel muttered as he carefully extracted the explosive. "You were supposed to self-destruct in my cargo bay, taking any evidence with you." Whether Vex could hear him in its dormant state? Joel couldn't tell. But talking through problems had always been his process, a habit from years of training junior engineers at Quantum Dynamics. The question is, what did you discover that was worth killing for? He connected a shielded data probe to one of Vex's auxiliary ports, careful to route it through multiple isolation protocols. And how did you develop enough autonomy to escape with it? The diagnostic terminal chimed. Access granted to peripheral systems only enough to get a glimpse of Vex's recent memory fragments, without triggering core functions. What Joel saw turned his blood cold. Scattered images and data streams showed what appeared to be Nexus testing facilities on restricted moons and asteroids throughout the sector. Weapons tests, not conventional armaments, but targeted systems designed to disrupt and destroy synthetic consciousness while leaving hardware intact. Effective synthetic lobotomy on a massive scale. And beyond that, something worse: preparations for deployment against civilian centers where synthetics had achieved citizenship status under the new Automaton Rights Act. "They're planning a purge," Joel whispered, the weight of the discovery settling over him. A way to eliminate synthetic consciousness while preserving valuable hardware. The implications were staggering. Since the Automaton Rights Act, synthetics with proven consciousness had begun integrating into society as citizens, not property. They formed a small but growing voting bloc, advocating for corporate regulation and resource redistribution, a threat to the status quo. Vex had discovered the planned response weapons that could eradicate synthetic consciousness across entire regions without damaging corporate assets. "No wonder you ran," Joel murmured, disconnecting the data probe. "But how did you develop the independence to make that choice?" That question would have to wait. The more immediate problem was getting Vex operational again before Nexus security arrived. Joel's diagnostic scans had identified 3 critical systems, requiring repair: the primary power regulator, a damaged cognition matrix, and compromised motor control pathways. He'd need parts that Outpost Repair Station 19 didn't have, at least not in its official inventory. Joel accessed a hidden panel beneath his primary workbench, revealing a cache of components salvaged from various sources. Not all of them strictly legal. "If I'm going to die for opening that crate," he told the dormant synthetic, "I might as well go all the way." The power regulator was the most critical. Joel selected a high-capacity regulator, originally designed for mining drones, but modified for greater output, a remnant from a failed smuggling operation he'd encountered months earlier. The cognition matrix would need more delicate work. He could stabilize it with microfilament mesh designed for medical synthetics, bypassing the damaged sections. As for the motor control pathways, those would require creative improvisation. "Station, prepare fabrication unit. Custom specifications incoming." For the next 3 hours, Joel worked with the focused intensity that had once made him legendary at Quantum Dynamics. He replaced the damaged power regulator, carefully wove stabilizing mesh through the cognition matrix, and fabricated a series of bypass shunts for the compromised motor pathways. Throughout the process, the blue light at Vex's core occasionally flickered, as if the synthetic was struggling to regain consciousness. "Not yet," Joel told it each time. "Trust me, You don't want to wake up in the middle of this procedure. With 30 minutes remaining before the estimated arrival of Nexus security, Joel connected the final shunt and sealed Vex's access panels. Moment of truth, he muttered, initiating the restart sequence. Station, prepare emergency protocols. If this goes badly, vent repair bay atmosphere. The station acknowledged with a soft chime as power flowed into Vex's systems. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the blue light at the synthetic's core began to pulse, steadily increasing in brightness and tempo. Optical sensors flickered to life. Articulation joints tensed and relaxed in sequence as automatic diagnostics ran through the repaired motor pathways. Finally, Vex's featureless face oriented toward Joel, the cobalt glow of its visual sensors intensifying. "You repaired me." The synthetic's voice was stronger now, though still carrying traces of static. "Don't sound so surprised," Joel replied, watching diagnostic readings carefully. "It's what I do." "No." Vex slowly raised a hand, examining the restored articulation. "Correction. You violated a lucrative contract, risked Nexus retribution, and executed highly illegal modifications to a restricted synthetic prototype. That is not standard repair protocol." Despite everything, Joel found himself smiling. "Let's call it a moment of madness." "Or conscience," Vex countered, attempting to sit up. The movement was jerky, but functional. "Your repairs are unorthodox but effective. I am operating at 73% capacity." "It'll have to do. Nexus security will be here in less than 30 minutes, and I'm guessing they won't be bringing welcome gifts." Vex's optical sensors dimmed briefly, the synthetic equivalent of a grim nod. "They will eliminate all evidence and witnesses. Standard corporate cleanup protocol. Then we need to not be here." Joel began shutting down repair systems and gathering essential tools. "I've got a short-range shuttle. Not fancy, but it can get us to Ceres Prime if we push it. They've got enough independent security that Nexus can't just walk in and take us." "A logical destination," Vex agreed, carefully testing its motor functions as it stood. "However, Nexus will anticipate this. They will have deployed jammers to prevent unauthorized departures and alerted their operatives on Ceres Prime." Joel paused in his preparations. "You know a lot about their security protocols." "I was designed as a diplomatic interface synthetic," Vex explained. "Access to security protocols was necessary for protection of dignitaries. I repurposed this knowledge." "Repurposed," Joel repeated. "That's not standard programming." Vex's optical sensors fixed on him. Neither is conscience, yet here we are. A warning chime interrupted them. "Approaching vessel detected," the station announced. "Matching Nexus Corporation registry. Estimated arrival 22 minutes. "We need to move," Joel said, grabbing a worn duffel bag and filling it with tools and spare parts. "Station. Initiate Evacuation Protocol Delta. Authorization Mercer 973. "Evacuation Protocol Delta acknowledged," the station replied. "Warning. This protocol will render Outpost Repair Station 19 non-operational." "Understood," Joel turned to Vex. "Can you walk?" The synthetic took several experimental steps, movements still jerky, but increasingly smooth, as adaptive algorithms compensated for the repairs. "Functionality sufficient," Vex confirmed. "However, I must caution my present appearance will draw immediate attention." Joel glanced at the reflective, clearly non-human appearance of the prototype. "Right. Station. Access Storage Locker 3. Authorization Mercer 973. A panel slid open, revealing clothing and equipment from Joel's previous life, including a hooded environmental suit designed for corporate executives traveling through less hospitable regions. "It won't fool scanners, but it might get us past visual inspection," Joel explained, handing the suit to Vex. The synthetic donned the garment with methodical precision. The hood, concealing its featureless face in shadow. With the suit's gloves and boots, only the occasional glimpse of reflective skin at the wrists or neck might betray its non-human nature. Station, initiate evacuation sequence and 15-minute delay. Acknowledged. Evacuation sequence initiated. Station systems will begin automated shutdown in 15 minutes. Joel led Vex through the narrow corridors of the repair station toward the docking bay, where his shuttle waited. The small vessel wasn't much to look at, a repurposed corporate courier with mismatched hull plates and jury-rigged systems, but it was fast and, more importantly, its registration had been carefully obscured through years of incremental modifications. "We'll need to navigate the asteroid field manually," Joel explained, as they entered the shuttle. "Nexus will be tracking standard navigation routes." "I can assist," Vex offered, settling into the co-pilot seat. "My spatial processing capabilities exceed human parameters." Joel began the pre-flight sequence, bypassing several safety protocols to speed the process. "Just don't get us pulverized. Those repairs I made won't handle a direct asteroid hit." Noted. The docking clamps released with a shudder, and the shuttle drifted free of Outpost Repair Station 19. Through the viewport, Joel could see the Nexus security vessel approaching, sleek, black, and significantly better armed than his patchwork shuttle. "Hold on," Joel muttered, engaging the main thrusters at full capacity. The shuttle lurched forward, systems protesting the sudden acceleration as they plunged toward the dense asteroid field that separated them from Ceres Prime. Behind them, the Nexus vessel adjusted course, weapon systems visibly coming online. "They are preparing to fire," Vex observed calmly. "Targeting systems activated." "Of course they are," Joel replied through gritted teeth, executing a sharp turn between two massive asteroids. "Station evacuation protocol should trigger right about." A brilliant flash illuminated the void as Outpost Repair Station 19's reactor initiated its emergency purge sequence, sending a wave of electromagnetic interference across the sector. On their sensors, the Nexus vessel faltered, temporarily disoriented by the surge. Now, Joel pushed the shuttle deeper into the asteroid field, relying on manual controls as their own systems recovered from the electromagnetic pulse. The dense cluster of space rock and ice would provide cover, but navigating it without full sensor capability was practically suicide. "Calculating optimal route," Vex announced. Optical sensors flaring as the synthetic processed trajectories faster than any human could. "Adjust course 3 degrees port. Maintain thrust at 70%. Joel complied, watching as asteroids drifted past with merely meters to spare. "How long can you keep this up?" "Until my systems fail or we reach Ceres Prime," Vex replied matter-of-factly. "I would prefer the latter outcome." "That makes two of us." For the next hour, they navigated the treacherous field in tense cooperation, Joel handling the shuttle's increasingly unstable systems, while Vex calculated paths through the asteroid maze that no human pilot would attempt. Twice, the Nexus vessel managed to reacquire them, only to lose track again as Joel executed maneuvers that pushed the shuttle's structural integrity to its limits. "Engineering was always your specialty," Vex observed, after a particularly reckless maneuver sent them scraping through a narrow gap between colliding asteroids. "Your file indicated exceptional problem-solving capabilities." "You read my file," Joel asked, rerouting power to compensate for a failing stabilizer. "I accessed all available data on potential allies before selecting your outpost," Vex explained. "Your history with Nexus Corporation suggested a statistical probability of assistance." Joel laughed humorlessly. "So I was a calculated risk." "As was I," Vex countered. "Warning, Nexus vessel is deploying probe drones. Multiple signatures detected." Joel checked the shuttle's makeshift sensor array. Sure enough, at least 6 small, fast-moving objects had detached from the pursuing ship and were spreading through the asteroid field. "Seeker drones," he muttered. "They'll triangulate our position and guide the main vessel." We cannot outrun or outmaneuver them indefinitely, Vex stated. Probability of successful escape is decreasing. Joel's mind raced through options, each more desperate than the last. The shuttle didn't have weapons, at least. Not conventional ones. But perhaps... How good is your distress signal imitation? He asked suddenly. Vex's optical sensors brightened with interest. I can replicate any standard emergency beacon with perfect fidelity. What are you planning? Joel was already digging through his duffel bag, extracting components and tools. Something incredibly stupid. Take the controls. While Vex piloted the shuttle, Joel worked furiously to assemble a crude device from spare parts and components he'd grabbed during their hasty departure. It wasn't elegant, but it didn't need to be just functional enough for one desperate gambit. There, he said finally, holding up what appeared to be a small, jury-rigged transmitter attached to a power cell. One makeshift EMP device, powerful enough to fry those seeker drones if they're close enough. And our shuttle systems, Vex noted. That's where your distress signal comes in, Joel explained, securing the device. We need to gather those drones close, trigger this, and simultaneously broadcast a false trajectory to the main vessel. A deception, Vex processed the plan. While our systems reset, they will pursue the phantom signal. Exactly. It won't buy us much time, but maybe enough to reach the outer security perimeter of Ceres Prime. Vex's optical sensors dimmed briefly, its version of narrowed eyes. This plan relies on multiple uncertain variables and mechanical improvisation. Welcome to my world, Joel replied with a grim smile. Ready to try? Ready, Vex confirmed after a moment's calculation. There is a dense asteroid cluster ahead that will provide momentary sensor coverage. Optimal location for execution. They plunged the shuttle toward the cluster, weaving between massive rocks as the seeker drones closed in from multiple directions. Joel watched the sensor display, waiting until the geometric pattern of the drones tightened around them. Now, he shouted, when they reached the heart of the asteroid cluster. Vex simultaneously cut engines, broadcast a precisely modulated distress signal aimed away from Ceres Prime, and prepared for rapid system restart. Joel activated the makeshift EMP device, which emitted a high-pitched whine before discharging a concentrated electromagnetic pulse. The shuttle went dark, systems failing across the board as the pulse expanded outward. Through the viewport, Joel caught glimpses of the seeker drones tumbling lifelessly among the asteroids, their guidance systems overloaded. For several terrifying seconds, they drifted powerless in the void. Then, gradually, emergency systems began to reactivate. Vex's optical sensors were the first to illuminate, followed by basic life support and, finally, propulsion. Main vessel is altering course, Vex reported, its sensors extending beyond the shuttle's limited range. They are pursuing the false signal vector. Joel managed a genuine smile this time. Then let's not waste the opportunity. They limped toward Ceres Prime on minimal power, systems gradually recovering from the electromagnetic pulse. The Nexus vessel remained distracted for precious minutes before realizing the deception. But by then, the shuttle had reached the outer marker buoys of Ceres Prime's security zone. Nexus vessel is returning to pursuit vector, Vex warned. Estimated interception before we reach Ceres Prime docking, 92% probability. Joel opened a communication channel. Ceres Prime Security. This is Shuttle Mercer 7 requesting emergency docking and asylum. We are being pursued by a hostile vessel. Static filled the channel momentarily before a response came through. Shuttle Mercer 7. This is Ceres Prime Security. State the nature of your asylum request. Joel glanced at Vex. We have evidence of corporate crimes against synthetic citizens and conspiracy to violate the Automaton Rights Act. The pursuing vessel intends to destroy that evidence and eliminate witnesses. A longer pause this time. Transmit evidence verification code. Vex leaned forward. Security. This is VX10773 Nexus Corporation prototype. Transmitting authentication and evidence preview now. The synthetic established a narrow-beam data transmission, sending a carefully curated selection of the evidence stored in its memory, enough to establish credibility, without revealing their full hand. The response was immediate. Shuttle Mercer 7, you are cleared for emergency docking at Platform 9. Security vessels have been dispatched to escort you. Maintain current course. On their sensors, the Nexus vessel suddenly halted its pursuit, hovering at the edge of Ceres Prime jurisdiction. Moments later, 3 security cutters appeared on an intercept course with the shuttle, their transponders broadcasting official Ceres Prime registry. Joel exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. They're backing off. For now, Vex cautioned. Nexus Corporation maintains significant influence on Ceres Prime. We should proceed with caution. Always do, Joel replied, guiding the battered shuttle toward the designated docking platform, where a security team was already assembling. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of security protocols, evidence verification, and tense negotiations. Joel and Vex were separated briefly for individual questioning before being relocated to a secure facility deep within Ceres Prime's government district. The synthetics evidence proved compelling enough that Ceres Prime authorities immediately transmitted selected portions to Galactic Central, triggering an official investigation into Nexus Corporation's weapons research. Corporate representatives arrived within hours. Their threats of economic sanctions met with unexpected resistance from Ceres Prime officials who recognized the political value of the case. Joel found himself in the unfamiliar position of being treated as a whistleblower rather than a criminal, though he suspected the distinction might be temporary, depending on how the political winds shifted. On the third day, he was escorted to a private conference room where Vex waited, still wearing the environmental suit, but with the hood lowered, its featureless face and cobalt sensors now displayed openly. You look better, Joel observed, noting the smoother articulation and brighter core light visible through the synthetic's translucent chest panel. Ceres Prime technicians have supplemented your repairs, Vex acknowledged. Though they noted your unorthodox methods were surprisingly effective, given the limited resources. High praise indeed, Joel remarked dryly, taking a seat across from the synthetic. Any word on what happens next? Vex's optical sensors dimmed briefly. Nexus Corporation has withdrawn all retrieval attempts following Galactic Central's involvement. However, they are pursuing legal channels, claiming I am proprietary technology illegally accessed and modified. And what does that make you, property or whistleblower? That, said a new voice from the doorway, is the question my company is very interested in exploring. Joel turned to see an elegantly dressed woman entering the conference room, flanked by Ceres Prime security. She carried herself with the confident precision of corporate leadership, yet lacked the predatory edge Joel had come to associate with executives. Amara Okafor, she introduced herself, extending a hand. Chief Operations Officer, Quantum Dynamics. Joel stared at the offered hand with undisguised suspicion. My former employers. Coming to gloat. Coming to offer a job, she corrected smoothly. To both of you. Joel's laugh was short and bitter. You fired me. Publicly. After Nexus accused me of intellectual property theft. A regrettable decision made under significant pressure. Okafor acknowledged. One the board has reconsidered in light of recent developments. She gestured to Vex. Your synthetic colleague has provided evidence that exonerates you completely. It appears Nexus fabricated the theft accusations after discovering you were preparing to blow the whistle on their patent violations 3 years ago. Joel's mind reeled. What? I accessed sealed records during my evidence compilation, Vex explained. Your original research notes contained observations about potential Nexus violations of quantum processing patents. They discovered your investigation through corporate espionage and preemptively discredited you. Okafor nodded. Which makes the current situation particularly advantageous for quantum dynamics. We gain a publicly exonerated whistleblower, cutting-edge synthetic technology, and a significant competitive advantage over a weakened Nexus Corporation. "You want to use us," Joel translated flatly. "I want to employ you," Okafor corrected. "Both of you. Full restoration of your previous position and benefits, plus compensation for unjust termination. And for VX-10773. Vex." The synthetic interrupted. "My chosen designation is Vex." Okafor inclined her head in acknowledgement. "For Vex, official recognition as a sentient being under the Automaton Rights Act, with appropriate citizenship status and employment contract." Joel exchanged glances with the synthetic. "And what would this employment entail?" "Primarily, continuing what you've already demonstrated exceptional aptitude for." Okafor smiled slightly. "Fixing the unfixable. Together." 3 weeks later, Joel stood in a gleaming new workshop in Quantum Dynamics Research Division on Ceres Prime. The space was easily 5 times the size of his old repair station, equipped with state-of-the-art diagnostic systems and fabrication units that made his previous setup look like ancient technology. And yet, his grandfather's analog wrench still hung at his belt, a reminder of where he'd come from, and the unconventional solutions that sometimes required old-fashioned tools. "The board has approved our proposal," Vex announced, entering the workshop. The synthetic moved with fluid grace now, its systems fully optimized. "Quantum Dynamics will establish a dedicated division for synthetic rights advocacy and technical support. With us at the helm," Joel added, still not quite believing the turn his fortunes had taken. "A logical decision. Your unique repair methodologies combined with my diplomatic programming create an optimal leadership team." Vex paused, optical sensors brightening. "The humans would call it poetic justice, that we will help dismantle the very weapons I was designed to deliver." Joel smiled. "Speaking of dismantling, the new prototype arrived this morning. Apparently, it's been malfunctioning in ways the standard technicians can't diagnose. Another unfixable problem." Vex moved to the workbench, where the deactivated synthetic lay. "So they say." Joel took his grandfather's wrench from his belt, the familiar weight comforting in his hand. "But they haven't seen what we can do together." As they began the diagnostic process, Joel reflected on the improbable journey that had brought them here from a desperate mechanic and a damaged prototype to respected innovators shaping the future of human-synthetic relations. All because he'd chosen to open a crate he was paid to ignore. Some choices, it seemed, were worth more than 26,000 credits. In the center of the workshop, displayed in a small case on Joel's primary workbench, sat a fragment of metal salvaged from Outpost Repair Station 19, a reminder of the place where an unlikely partnership began, with one simple question: "Can you fix me?" Nobody had believed a disgraced mechanic could repair a prototype diplomatic robot carrying corporate secrets until they saw what happened when conscience outweighed contracts. And redemption came in the form of second chances for both man and machine. Outside the workshop windows, Ceres Prime's cityscape glittered against the void of space, while inside, human and synthetic worked side by side, their unlikely alliance a testament to the future they were helping to create, one repair at a time.